Hey, welcome back to the Rockman Power Hour. I'm Jason Rockman, your host, and thanks again for joining us. It's always a pleasure to welcome you each week. As you know, our new episodes now are dropping on Mondays. We kind of like that day a little bit better. Start of a new week, start of a new vibe. So thanks for hanging with us, and thanks for listening and for checking back with us. We really, really appreciate it. This week's episode is crazy one for me because this guy's been important to me for as long as I can remember. I still remember seeing A Clockwork Orange at Cinema 5 and NDG when I was a wee lad, and it scarred me, but in the best way. And I've had a chance to meet him before. I've had a chance to talk to him, but this was great to really have a bit of a back and forth. Really focused, not at a convention, not somewhere where he's running to somewhere else. I mean, he was here to talk about his new show, and which is really good, by the way. CBC has a new show called Son of a Critch, and I really, really suggest you checking it out. He plays a very crotchety old grandpa that is just brilliant. And I think I've seen the first 2 episodes have aired so far, and you can check it out on CBC and on Gem as well, their streaming service. I never take it for granted when I get to stand in front of this guy, and he's pretty special. So this week we're going to be joined by none other than Malcolm McDowell. But before we get to that, let me introduce you to my co-host, Ryan Stick. Ryan, Malcolm McDowell. Hey. Are you a fan of any of his work? Like, what do you remember him from?
I really liked his stint in Community, actually. But I also, one of the first times I remember seeing him was in Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
And he's kind of the guy that, if depending on which timeline you're looking at or whatever, like kind of kills Captain Kirk. But he's he showed up at Montreal Comic Con. Well, he was a guest, but there was a special panel between William Shatner and Patrick Stewart. It was a special event, like the 2 captains. And then in the middle of it, the Comic-Con team kind of scheduled for him to kind of like make an appearance, and you just hear this microphone and this voice coming out of nowhere, and and what an instant presence, and you hear this hush go over an audience of 1,000+ people, and just, it was awesome, man.
He's special, man. He's got a way about him that when he walks in, he just commands the room, and he's done so many cool things. And what I like about Malcolm McDowell is he's always relevant. He's not one of these guys like, oh yeah, he was good in that. I mean, he was good in Clockwork Orange 50 years ago, and he was good in Son of a Critch, which is on now. He was also amazing when he did his stint as Ari Gold's nemesis in Entourage. The guy is just always good. So, Ryan, talking to Malcolm McDowell, there's a few people that we'll chat with that, and you know what it's like too. You get nervous because you're a big fan and you're trying not to, and I'm pretty good with keeping a cool face, but with him, I was nervous a bit because it's Malcolm McDowell, he's somebody that's done so many cool things, and he's so respected, and he's so sharp-witted. That the guy, if he wanted to cut you down with his tongue, he could do it in a second, but he's just such a gracious guy. And he's so unassuming, and he's not, I don't know. I think because of some of the characters he's played, you'd think he would be a prick, but he's the furthest thing from it. He's just really, really nice. He's a really, really nice guy, and he's kind. And I think he understands that, he's done a lot of things that are iconic, but he doesn't act like an icon. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And a big shout out to my friend Marco Vaccaro, who's like gone out as his character in Clockwork Orange for Halloween a few times. And to play a character that's so kind of like a heel, you could say in wrestling terms, like literally kind of a bad dude, but make him so charming and so likable, like that's kind of a gift. And that kind of suaveness is something that only Malcolm McDowell could pull off.
Yeah, and I was able to chat with him a bit about Clockwork Orange.
Suave, God, Ryan.
Yeah, I was able to chat with him a bit about Clockwork Orange too, which was great because, it is the 50th anniversary of Clockwork, and so yeah, we got to chat with him a bit about Clockwork Orange, and that was cool, and about this new show, Son of a Critch. So check it out. Here is our conversation with Malcolm McDowell.
Hi.
Hi, Malcolm. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Great to chat again. We've met before at Ottawa Comic Con, actually.
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Right. Oh my God, that's when Trudeau came.
It was actually when we had our special guest before he was actually in. Before he was officially in the house.
I know, and it's really wild. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
He was very nice. He came by and said hi, and he's a trip.
He also, I think Margot Kidder was there that year as well. So it was a good year. It was a really, really good year. But I want to talk to you about Son of a Critch, because this is fun. I guess you're familiar with the fact that CBC has been knocking it out of the park with comedies in the last little while.
Well, I know they had Schitt's Creek, right?
Yeah.
What else they have?
They've got that. They've got Kim's Convenience. So they're pretty much on this hot streak right now. And I'm thinking, after watching a couple of these episodes, I'm thinking that it's got all the elements I think that people are going to be looking for, to have a little bit of escapism and then kind of bring back those memories of being a kid.
Yeah. Listen, it's beautifully written. Mark is a wonderful writer, and that's the reason I'm involved, because I just read the scripts and I went, geez, yes. They're beautifully written, and, they're heartwarming. And honestly, I think that people need something like this right now, because of the last 2 years of what's been going on. There's a lot of people that are, that are kind of depressed because of isolation. A lot of people are suffering mentally from this. That's not really talked about.
Right.
But it's really funny, because it was brought home to me, because I had a friend of mine who was in London, actually, and she was in her apartment and couldn't leave the flat, and was nervous about doing anything. And ended up with dementia. I mean, literally. And it must have been partly due to the isolation and the fear of, so I don't know why we got on that, but I'm just saying that it's a good time for comedy, is what I'm saying.
And we got on that because the entire world is going through this together at the same time. And this is, I can't remember in my lifetime the last time the entire world went through something together and we're able to talk about it every day with each other.
I guess one of the world wars, but we weren't all together.
Right. Exactly. And we weren't connected. We would hear stories and, but there's something about your character. And I appreciate what you said at the beginning. I don't think you're at a point in your life where you have to do anything. I think you pick what you want to do. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it speaks to the writing, because your lines are some of the best lines in the 2 episodes that I've seen so far. And, you come in, you do your thing, you leave, but it just stays. It's like, oh man, that's a zinger. Oh man, that's a zinger.
Listen, at my age, I don't want to be first in, last out. I want to come in, do a couple of things and then take a little time off.
Yeah.
But I want to have fun. And so Mark provided that with this. This is the perfect thing for me to do. And I just love being in Newfoundland. What an incredible place.
Yeah. With
incredible people, it's just such a damn privilege to do it, really. And there's such a good cast. The kids were fantastic.
Yeah, they really
even are. The nuns were great.
It really is. There's this one scene where the nun is passing around a manila envelope to the kids to guess what's inside the envelope. It's wonderful. When I don't want to give anything away, but I know
it's beautiful. Yeah. It's crazy. I know, it's so much fun. She's brilliant. Anyway, it's a great cast, a really fantastic, and I just hope it connects with the audience. I think it will.
I think it will. I'm almost certain it will. I mean, after watching that, I think it, like I said, it has all the elements that people are going to identify with. This is a big year for Clockwork Orange. Let's face it. Okay. I know I'm a big Clockwork fan. You're always in my room with me.
Oh my God. Oh, that's a Japanese one.
I have this one. I have another one. I've got this one I've got this one as well with your different heads.
Have you got this?
You know what? I'm going to one up you on that. I've got this one.
No, this is the 4K.
I've got the 4K. This is the
Is
UK,
that 4K?
This is the UK Steelbook.
Oh,
I love how I'm one-upping Malcolm.
you one up me. I thought I was lucky to have this.
Well,
they
you're
sent
lucky.
me a box of them.
You got one up on me. You were in the movie.
The 4K though, it's as good as the print of the premiere of the movie.
Well, this is what I was going to say. I'm a big supporter of 4K, especially with older stuff, because really the whole purpose of 4K is you're able to pull out so much data out of film when you do it. And the transfer on this is absolutely gorgeous. It's crazy. Yeah. So when you're at a point where you're at in your life, and I mean, this is quite a while back, what's it like for you to look back on it with that kind of clarity and to see it that clearly? Is it a trip?
Yeah. I mean, God, it's a total trip, because I haven't watched it all, but I'll see a bit of it. Usually I see the beginning and the end because I go to have dinner in between. And the end is brilliant. When I think back, is a lot of that was improv, And weirdly, so we shot the end sequence in the hospital bed, and the minister coming in, and then the crazy doctor lady with the things. And I remember saying to Stanley, this is getting stale. Why can I literally say the first thing he goes, yeah, do try one. And of course, that's the one.
That's the one that stayed in.
And I kind of go, cabbages, knickers. And because it lifts the whole movie.
Yeah.
Suddenly the energy lifts the movie. It's remarkable, really. And then the whole thing with him, I could see Stanley getting bored when the minister was wrapping up the movie, basically.
Yeah.
And he's cutting my steak, and I could see him out of my periphery vision, ready to pull the plug on this, like cut his dial or something. And so I just went like this to hurry him up.
Yeah.
And the next thing, I see Stanley with a handkerchief in his mouth. He was laughing so hard. And that became what the whole scene was about.
Yeah.
And it took the curse off it. It just made it absolutely. So we shot all that. The next sequence became, when the guys do the home invasion.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we sat around because you can't do a stylized, wonderful bit, in the hospital and then go and do a naturalistic. It just was not going to work. And I remember saying, Stanley, we can't just come in, kick him, and then throw bottles through the window. I mean, that's not going to work. We got to come up with something better than that. So he goes, I'll get the stuntman in and do this and do that. And okay, so we were 5 days without shooting. And then he walked past me and goes, can you dance? Now, I was so bored by this time, I went, can I dance? And went straight into Singing in the Rain.
Wow.
Straight in. And he put me in the car, drove back to the house, bought the rights, came back, and we shot for another week doing that sequence.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Were there moments in Son of a Critch where you were allowed to have some artistic liberty like that and to do some
yeah. But it was so well written, to be honest. There was one where he gets mixed up with the meds and stuff.
Okay.
And we had a wonderful director, the actor. Jay, who's an actor. Anyway, he's a very good director. He goes, Malcolm, just, because he's a World War II nut like I am.
Right.
He goes, tell the story of, how about the the Dam Busters thing, and I'm lying there going, it was the bouncing bomb that did it. Bounce, 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 boom, sink, ba-boom. The bouncing bomb. And went into this whole thing. I mean, nobody would know what the hell I was talking about, but it was perfect.
Right.
Because it was, and he's like going, what? He's nuts, and saying, we lost a good man on the way back. We lost many men on the way back. I was tail end Charlie. That's that gunner at the back. He said, but they wouldn't take me in for flying. I had flat feet. I think that's what my uncle told me once. He goes, yeah, I couldn't fly. I had flat feet. I went, well, aren't everybody's feet flat? He goes, no, flat feet. Apparently that is something you can't do in the military. I don't know why. But anyway, I guess it's like bone spurs. The Trump thing, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. So, but we didn't do too much because it was so well written. You didn't have to.
It really does. It is really wonderful. And Malcolm, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to chat today. I'm really looking forward to see people's reaction to this. And again, it's just an absolute pleasure to chat. And thank you for the stories of Clockwork, because those are pretty special to me.
Okay, you bet.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, Jason.
Bye. The first time I was supposed to chat with Malcolm McDowell, I had gone to Fan Expo, and it was before, I think it was, we just had our first year of Montreal Comic Con. It was like in its infancy, really, really in its infancy. And I had gone to Toronto to Fan Expo, and it was the first year that I went with Julia. And I had bought a little camera, and I was trying to get little interviews or little shout outs for, I think it was for Slaves on Dope stuff that we were doing. And I was waiting for Malcolm McDowell, and someone jumped in front of us. And Julia got into an argument with the person who jumped in front of us. And Julia has, Julia's our producer, and she's also my wife. And she's mild-mannered and sweet, and she's until yeah. But every once in a while, there's a little fire in her that comes out, and it came out right before we were supposed to talk to Malcolm McDowell. She just kind of told the person who was in front of us, and I got how the etiquette was. Like they were a bigger media outlet. They came with this huge camera, and they kind of pushed to the front. And I was like, all right, well, we'll just move back, and we'll just be patient. We'll be happy to have our time with him when we get our time with him. We're just happy to have any time with him. And I remember she just fucking unloaded on the person. It was like, excuse me, we were waiting here. And I was just like, I just fucking turned around and walked away. And she walked out and said, where are you going? I'm like, we're done. I'm not doing that. Like, that's totally embarrassing. And I remember we got into not an argument. We were in a bit of a spat. And then when he showed up in Montreal as our guest, I think it was Montreal or Ottawa. It was Montreal or Ottawa years later. I was interviewing him.
Someone jumped in front of you and
kicked
him in the face.
It was no, but we were interviewing him, and I think Julia was with me, and I looked at her. I said, "Please don't do what you did in Toronto." And we both laughed. So, but yeah, it's one of those things where I've learned over the years to just it'll happen when it happens, and there's no need to kick and scream or put your flag in the sand or say, "Do you know who the fuck I am?" or bow to me, I am your king or queen or whatever the shit. Just be yourself and just have patience. And that's what's so gratifying about this episode is that I got to have a real nice conversation with Malcolm, and it took a while to have, but this was a really good one. This is a really good one. It was to me, it meant the world. It was like, I was like a little kid talking to him. So
when I'm about to talk to someone I really want to talk to, I get the yips, I overthink, but you seem to handle yourself pretty well. What was your pre-game plan before going toe to toe with Mr. McDowell?
I think just to have, obviously respect and listen, not to, I don't know, just try to listen and be engaged in the conversation and not be distracted at all. It's always a challenge when you're doing a junket style interview, which this was. We were lucky enough to have.
Okay.
Yeah, you're very engaged right now. Thanks, Ryan. It's always a challenge when you're doing something that's like in a junket style where you're very, very tight on time. We had a bit more time with him than you would in a traditional junket setting, but it's just, I could talk to him about cat people for 45 minutes. I could talk to him about Caligula for 45 minutes. So just the fact that we got to chat a little bit about Clockwork, we got to obviously talk about Son of a Critch, which is what he's promoting, which is a fun show. But I think it's just being engaged and being in the moment and not being distracted. So, and just to be able to have him pull out his version of Clockwork Orange on 4K, and I don't want to say one up him, but show him, oh, did you know about this version, which he didn't, was really fun. But it's tough because I could let that conversation go on forever and ever. And he would probably be like, shut the fuck up. But you understand what I'm saying, right? It's like, you host your You, Me, and YTV show.
Yeah.
That show is all about the stuff you're super passionate about. So for you could talk to these guys for hours about maybe one episode of one thing. But at one point you're like, is the rest of the world going to give a fuck about what I'm talking about right now, to the point where I am? You know what I mean? Like, what I'm saying?
It's kind of a niche genre, but at the same time, like, Canadian television doesn't value its history, so they don't make any special features for anything when it comes to the subject on my show. So I had to kind of go and invent the special features. Like, at least there's like all these Clockwork Orange re-releases and documentaries and all this kind of stuff. But it is amazing every now and then when you could still peel out new information from something that seems to be such common knowledge. And it's not impossible. And I've seen you do it with many people.
Yeah.
Where you'll be able to ask them about something, a light will go off in their eyes, and they'll answer a question happily because you didn't just ask them what their favorite episode of the show they were in was.
That's how it felt with him, with Malcolm, when he started telling us stuff about working with Kubrick and, the dancing, like the singing in the rain scene and all that. And I have to strongly encourage anybody who's listening, if you have not seen A Clockwork Orange, you need to see it. It's a staple in cinema. You have to see this movie, and you got to watch it a couple of times because it's just a phenomenal piece of cinema. And it's, David Prowse is in it. He's Darth Vader's in this movie. He got one of his first roles in this film. So it's a special movie. It's definitely a special film. And it's one, his performance is phenomenal. There's so many great performances in the movie, and it's Kubrick. I mean, Stanley Kubrick is just one of the greats, man. One of the greats. And to be able to have just to hear a tidbit of information about someone that worked with Stanley Kubrick is, it's one of the reasons why I get up in the morning and do this, because that's what the goal is to have great conversations like that. So.
Absolutely, man.
Listen, we got a lot of stuff coming up. We're back into 2022 in a big way. I want to remind people, Mondays are when we have our new episodes now. So if you've been waiting on Fridays and going, hey, there's no new Rockman Power Hour, Mondays are when we're going to be dropping these episodes. Please like and subscribe, and you will be alerted as to when a new episode drops. Ryan, next week we've got something really cool coming, because when you think of heavy metal and you think of rock and roll, the first thing that comes to mind is the flute. Right?
Yes.
I don't want to give away who our guest is next week, but let's just say he made the flute iconic in heavy metal and in rock.
You could say that he can steal a Grammy from Metallica.
I didn't even talk to him about that, but but yeah, he's definitely someone who's left his mark on rock and roll. That is for sure. And he did it with a flute, which is pretty crazy. So next week, our guest is going to be none other than Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. So make sure you tune into our episode next Monday on the Rockman Power Hour. And on behalf of myself and my co-host Ryan Stick, I want to thank you for joining us. We'd like to thank our guest Malcolm McDowell, and thank you everyone at Taro PR for helping us get that in motion. And I also want to thank our producer, Julia Kajerski, and all of you for joining us here this week on the Rockman Power Hour. We'll see you next week.